That moves us to the action agenda, item number 14, action as necessary or appropriate on matters discussed in executive session. Do I have any motions? Ms. Huddle.
I move that we approve selected employment items per Exhibit A.
Do I have a second? Mr. Hogan. Any discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Do I have any additional motions?
Ms. Hines, per item C, I move that we issue a solicitation for a social emotional learning professional development program with the program content and final contract to be approved by the board.
Do I have a second? Mr. Scully. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? That would be 6. Mr. Satterfield, yes. All right, all opposed? 1. All right, that motion carries 6-1. Do I have any additional motions?
I have one more.
All right.
Per item E, I move that we approve the contract with McMillan Pasden Smith Architecture for the facilities needs assessment and advisory services for the 5-year master facilities plan.
Do I have a second? Ms. Barnhart. Any discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor? All right, none opposed. That motion carries 7-0. And are there any other motions? All right, seeing none, that moves us to item 15, first reading approval of proposed revisions to Board Policy IE, Organization of Instruction, Exhibit F. Dr. Ross?
Madam Chair, I call our Chief of Academics and Administration, Ms. Anna Miller, to present for first approval Board Policy IE, Organization of Instruction.
Thank you so much. Good evening again, Madam Chair, Board, and Dr. Ross. Our Organization of Instruction, we had this for discussion at the last meeting. We took your recommendations and put those into the policy for this meeting. Excuse me. So as you can see in the policy, it would be the board prefers an elementary pre-K, K through 5, and then middle 6 through 8, and then high school remains 9 through 12. And then in the next part, we took out beginning with the 12-13 school year, as we have offered our career and technical education since that time, and will continue to do so. And then finally, at your request, we changed the will to may. The district may offer a choice-based virtual program for students in grades K through 12. And again, we removed the year, as that will be ongoing. And that is our changes that we made, and so we're looking for first reading approval.
All right, do I have a motion for first reading? Mr. Hogan?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the first reading approval of proposed revisions to Board Policy IE, Organization of Instruction, shown in Exhibit F.
Do I have a second? Mr. Scully? Any discussion? Any questions?
Question?
Is there a question from anyone over here? From any district administration? Okay. No? Okay. Any questions? Mr. Hogan, you have a question?
I appreciate you calling on me.
Sorry.
Dr. Ross, we've probably discussed this, but pending if this does get passed, do we know, or does it say in here, did I ever look at when implementation of this grade structure would take place?
Yeah, so we took the year off to give us some flexibility by saying this is what we prefer, and that way we'll let the 5-year study guide it, but we could still pass this.
Okay, but I guess the intent would be
as soon as possible.
okay.
Yes, sir.
In theory, maybe 3 to 5 years. Would we be safe to say that would be a target, or?
Next year?
I don't.
And I understand.
I think yeah. Realistically, yeah, you're looking at 3 to 5 years, but we would like to see what options we can get from this 5-year study.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? All right, I will call for the question. All in favor? That motion carries 7-0. Ms. Snipes, you raised your hand? Did you raise your hand? Okay, Ms. Snipes is abstaining. That motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. And that moves us to the next item on the agenda, which is
Unencumbered time.
first reading approval of new board policy GCLE unencumbered time, Exhibit G.
And to the podium is Dr. Wicker to bring forth that policy. Dr. Wicker.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Ross. This evening, we're presenting proposed board policy GCLE, unencumbered time, as an action item for first reading. Just a reminder that this policy is pursuant to the new statute where school boards must adopt an unencumbered time policy within 3 months of the state's adopted policy, which took place on January the 17th, 2023. It is a recommendation of the administration that the district adopts the statewide policy for unencumbered time adopted by the State Board of Education, submit the newly adopted policy to the South Carolina Department of Education within 30 days of adoption, and completely implement the provisions of the act before the July 1st, 2023 deadline.
All right, do I have a motion for this policy? Mr. Hogan.
Make the motion that we approve the first reading approval of new board policy GCLE, unencumbered time, shown in Exhibit G.
Do I have a second? Mr. Scully. Any discussion or questions for Mr. Wicker? Dr. Ricker? All right, seeing none, I will call for the question. All in favor? Okay, that motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.